My name is Dylan Rothbein. I identify as Asperger's and dyslexic. I have a BA in history with a concentration in the history of grassroots movements from Empire State College. I'm a grad student at Southern New Hampshire University getting my master's degree in history. In between my BA in American history and my master's degree in history, I spent 5 months in Israel preparing for rabbinical school. I've also spent 10 years in the disability rights movement in various capacities. The book that we're going to be reading today is called The Journey of York by Hanson Davis and illustrated by Elenia Harris. My goal of this reading is for people to be proud of our history and proud to be disabled, and ultimately proud to be Americans and proud of our flag. This book will be narrated today by disability rights activist and filmmaker Margot Cole.
My name is Margot. I have cerebral palsy and I'm studying biology at PSU Harrisburg. Long before Thomas Jefferson became America's third president, he dreamed of Western exploration. Once elected, he made it one of his priorities. In January 1803, he sent a secret message to Congress requesting funding for a modest expedition to explore the Western continent from the frontier to the Pacific Ocean. The purpose of the journey was to establish new trade routes, document the flora, fauna, and landscape, and inform the Western tribes of American Indians that they were now part of the United States. President Jefferson called the exploring team his Corps of Discovery. It was Jefferson's hope that they would find a water route to the Pacific, expecting it to be a perilous journey. Jefferson picked Meriwether Lewis to lead the expedition. Lewis was Jefferson's private secretary, an officer in the military, and a frontiersman. The president had complete faith in Lewis's ability to lead such an important mission. After accepting the assignment, Captain Lewis contacted his old Army commander, Captain William Clark, and enlisted him as a co-commander of the expedition. Clark was an experienced soldier and a frontiersman as well, with a reputation for being a leader other men would follow. Captain Lewis wanted some good hunters, stout, healthy, unmarried men, accustomed to the woods and capable of bearing bodily fatigue in a pretty considerable degree. The captains recruited 27 volunteers for the mission. When Captain Clark accepted the co-command of the expedition, he ordered York, his slave, to prepare for the trip. York was born into slavery in the early 1770s, a time in America when it was legal for one person to own another. He was the property of John Clark, William Clark's father. From an early age, York spent his time with William and was ordered to serve and protect him with his own life. When John Clark died, he left York and the other slaves to William. His property York did not have a choice in whether he would be a volunteer for Jefferson's dangerous mission. Slaves did not have choices. In May 1804, Captain Lewis, Captain Clark, and 28 men set out for St. Louis, Missouri, in 3 boats with the goal of reaching the Pacific Ocean. All but one of these men were volunteers. This is his story. October 1803, Louisville, Kentucky. York, Master Clark called. I walked over to where he was packing his journals. Run to the dock and remind those soldiers to pack the Neil boat just as Captain Lewis has ordered. My hesitation was obvious, but I ran to deliver the message. Why does Clark keep sending his boy to tell us what to do? Muttered one soldier. When did it become acceptable for a slave to order a white man around? Another barked. York, a third man, interrupted. It was Charles Floyd. Thank you for the message. You can assure the captain that we will take care of everything according to specifications. We left Louisville and headed for St. Louis, Missouri. The hardest part was not knowing if I would ever make it home to my family. I didn't volunteer to be one of the president's men of discovery. It wasn't my decision to leave my wife and loved ones. I am a slave, and slaves don't get to decide. The captain said we would spend the winter in St. Louis recruiting our last members and preparing for the journey. We would be rowing, poling, and pulling upstream against the current of the Missouri River. We would be seeking safe passage from Indian nations. We would be climbing the highest mountains. It would not be easy. July 4, 1804, Archinson, Kansas. After pushing up the Missouri River for many months, we prepared for the Independence Day. The whole camp was full of energy. We would be the first Americans west of the Mississippi River to celebrate this important day. I believe this is what we fought for, York, Sergeant Floyd said to me. All Americans working side by side to build a great nation. I was raised believing that this is what American independence should look like. Floyd was different from most of the other soldiers. He grew up in Kentucky, a slave state, but his family did not believe that God intended one man to own another. They had moved across the Ohio River to Indiana, a free territory. Today was the nation's 28th Independence Day. I had been alive for all of them, but I did not have independence. If there were more men like Charles Floyd in the world, I could hope that one day that sweet bell of liberty would ring from me. August 1804, Omaha, Nebraska. George Delarue, the son of the Frenchman and Shawnee woman, was our best interpreter. He could speak English and French, and he knew how to communicate with most of the Indians we met, either with words or by using his hands. We called it sign talking. When we encountered our First Nation, a small gathering of Okie, Missouri Indians, the leader we met started talking right to me. Captain Lewis stepped in and asked Duroyer to explain to the Indian that I was not the leader of our group. Later, at the Council of the Bluffs, the captains met with the leaders from the Okie, Missouri to present gifts and declare America's claim on their land. I asked Duroyer to explain what had happened earlier when the Indian leader tried to speak with me. He explained that the man chief of the Bear Clan had thought I was his spirit brother. He didn't know why I failed to recognize him. It was then that I realized that these Indians had met white men before. They had likely never seen a black man like me. August 20, 1804, Sioux City, Iowa. A good man died today. My friend Sergeant Charles Floyd had been sickly for more than a week. Though yesterday he seemed much improved, today he is gone. There was nothing we could do. Captain Lewis used every bit of his skill, but could not save him. I sat with my friend as he died, and I cried. Captain Lewis performed a beautiful service with all the honors of war. He named a river and a small bluff where we buried him after Sergeant Floyd. October 1804, Fort Mandan, North Dakota. Each time I met a new Indian nation, the captains would explain to them that they were now part of a new tribe called the United States and that they had a new great chief called the President. They also now had a duty to protect the President's warriors or suffer for it. Then, in case there was any misunderstanding, one of our corps would demonstrate for the Indians the power of our new rifle. Our experience with the Sioux nations during the previous month did not go as well as the captains had hoped. The powerful Sioux were unimpressed by the captain's speeches, gifts, and displays of military might. We hoped things would go better with the Median and the Hittita people and arrived in their villages with plans to build a winter camp. Our interpreters' skills had gotten us this far, but would need to meet someone familiar with the Indians of the far western nations to complete the journey. The captains met Toussaint Cherubini, a Frenchman who knew the ways and the languages of the western tribes. He also had a Shirshun wife named Sacagawea who could help. He said that for a price he would lead us to the ocean. That bitterly cold winter we also met One Eye, chief of the Hadista Indians. Chief One Eye had earlier refused to honor us with a visit, but he had supported the British during the Revolution, and after that loss, Chief One Eye had little trust left for the white man. But he heard intriguing tales of a black man, and curiosity finally drove him to visit our encampment, demanding to see me. I stood in front of him as he licked his fingers and touched my skin. He said he thought I was another trick by the white man. When my color didn't come off, when he saw that I was black the way God intended, he proclaimed that I must be an important man. He treated me with respect and called me Big Medicine. After his visit, our relations with Chief One Eye and the Hadista people improved. From then on, whenever we encountered a nation, Captain Clark would call me forward and display me to his advantage. I would strip my shirt and perform great feats of strength or dance on my hands. My strength and the color of my skin, my big medicine, were used by Captain Clark to persuade the Indians of America's might. November 1804, Fort Mandan. Cherubini and Sacagawea joined us within Fort Mandan. Everyone called her his wife, but I heard how this teenage girl had been stolen from her family. Cherubini bought Sacagawea in trade and made her his wife. I think that is why she and I became so close. She was the only other one out there who knew, like I knew, what it meant to be called the property of another. Sacagawea gave birth to a baby, Jean Baptiste Cherubini, over the winter. Captain Clark gave him the nickname Tom. Seeing this mother and child was a beautiful but painful reminder of the family I was forced to leave behind. I took it upon myself to protect Sacagawea and Tom. I would keep them alive at any cost. April 1805, Fort Mandan, and June to July 1805, Great Falls, Montana. When the ice river began to break along the river and the geese had been flying north for about 3 weeks, we left our winter camp at Fort Mandan. It was time to find a way to and then through the Rocky Mountains. A few weeks in, and we still had not reached the mountains. Captain Lewis scouted ahead. He returned with important news. I have beheld the greatest sight a man could ever see in the Great Falls ahead. When I thought would be what I thought would be an easy passage, perhaps one day will be much more difficult. Captain Clark replied, "It is too late to turn back now. We either succeed or we perish in the attempt. We will face it like we have all other obstacles, together." It took almost a month. We made wheels and axles to roll the canoes across 18 miles. We had to find ways to lighten our load. We dug a hole to store supplies that we could not transport. They would be retrieved on the return journey. Together we worked ourselves to exhaustion and accomplished this task. July 1805, Rocky Mountains. The Mandan said that to cross the mountains we must have good horses, good supplies, and a man who knew the way through. They told us that the Shoshin Indians could provide all three. The Shoshin lived beyond the waterfalls. We spent the next few weeks that summer searching for them. While we were searching, Captain Clark bestowed an honor on me. Throughout the journey, the captains made it a point to name the natural wonders we encountered. Some they named after our corps members, such as with Floyd River. This day they named a group of islands after me, York's 8 Islands. That name meant a great deal to me and made me believe that the captains valued my efforts. It let me dare to hope that my future might be different. September 1805, Bitterroot Mountains, Idaho. We found the Shoshone, and as the Mandan had said, they provided us with horses, supplies, and a guide to lead us. We set out, but even with the guide and supplies, we were not prepared for the snowstorm that struck once we began to cross the mountains. We lost our path. The conditions got so bad and we became so hungry that we were forced to kill and eat our horses. Everyone believed we were dying. Captain Clark decided that smaller groups of us might be able to make our way through the mountains and reach the other side. There was no doubt that I would be beside him on this important mission, and with Sacagawea and Pomp counting on us, I was determined not to fail. Our party pushed through the mountains until we reached the territory of the Nez Perce Indians. October 1805, Ornifino, Idaho. We traded with the Nez Perce for roots, berries, and salmon. Then we made our way back to see how the others had fared. We were grateful to find that they had survived the great mountain. Once we were all safely out of the mountains, we stayed with the Nez Perce for several weeks to heal up and build canoes for the last leg of our journey. Having little luck with our axes, the Nez Perce taught us how to use fire to hollow out tree trunks to build canoes. When we had all recovered their strength, the captain said it was time to make it for the ocean. November 1805, present, Washington State. On a cold, wet day in November, Captain Lewis stood at the bow surveying the horizon. Mount Hood, he called out. It was the mountain British sailors had reported in the 1790s when they visited the Pacific coast. Seeing it told us that we were indeed on the Columbia River nearing the ocean. As I strained my eyes, I was sure I saw the blue of the ocean in the distance too. After 2 hard years of wondering if I would ever see the ocean, there was our landmark, Mount Hood. Soon there were other signs. Gulls flew in the sky. The smell of salt water was in the air. When the captains were sure that they had their first look at the ocean, they began shouting, "Ocean in view! Ocean in view!" We had finally made it to the Pacific. We had accomplished the mission given to us by President Jefferson. Today, there was reason to celebrate. November 1805, Long Beach, Washington. The weather was rough and wet as we gathered on the north side of the river. The captains were discussing the best location to build our camp. Our side was better for hunting, the other side better for building and supplies. They decided to put a vote which side of Columbia River we would winter on. This surprised us all. Up until this point, the captains had made the decisions. They went around and each person gave his vote. When they got to me, everyone stared as if expecting me to speak. I knew that in these United States we lived in, a slave had no right to vote. A black man had never had the right to put his word up beside a white man's. I froze. Captain Clark spoke. It took every one of us to get this far. It took our blood, our sweat, and our whole heart to get this far. The way I see it, every man has earned the right to say where we go from here. York, he said, it is time for you to vote. So I voted, right there beside all these white men. I put my word up, and it counted for something. November 1805, Fort Clatsop, Astoria, Oregon. We decided to winter on the south side of the river, which had good elk for hunting, and we started building our fort. We called it Fort Clatsop. Captain Lewis named it to honor our new neighbors, the Clatsop Indians. After that vote, even the dreary weather and the cloudy days couldn't get me down. In the next few weeks of building Fort Clapsop, I worked as hard as any 3 men. Captain Clark said that I pushed my body to exhaustion. I just wanted to show the others how much I deserved that vote. In the end, I think I proved my point. December 25, 1805, Fort Clapsop. Captain Lewis called us to the campfire. Our mission for the president is complete, a success. He said, we will be going home soon and I will be making my report and introductions of the president's fine men of discovery, the men who sacrificed more than any patriot ought to volunteer for this nation. You are heroes. You made the president's dream come alive. The fiddler started playing and Captain Lewis started calling the names like he was presenting us to President Jefferson. After each name, there was a hoot and a holler. The fiddler played and we danced. We were having such a good time that no one even noticed, no one beside me, that when Captain Lewis called out the names of those brave heroes, my name was not included. That's when it first became clear that my return home would not be as celebrated as everyone else's. March 23, 1806, Fort Clapsop. Spring has come and we will leave Fort Clapsop soon. Captain Clark is excited to return to what he calls a civilized life, a life where he is my master and I his obedient slave. I must return to such a life, for that is where my family is. I will tell them all that I have done. I worked hard every day and proved my right to cast a vote among other men. I have seen a world that few men will ever dream of. I've climbed to the top of snow-capped mountains and swum rivers so swift that buffalo lost their footing. There are islands that bear my name, and I have walked among the first Americans who welcomed me into their homes like a long-lost brother. They called me Big Medicine, Gift from God, and Black Indian, and yet I am still York. Just York. I ask you to remember the things I have done, so that when I am gone, my name, my voice, my story do not die with me. These are the words, the only gift I have to give. The end.
This land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking the ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway, and down below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled, and I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. And all around me a voice was sounding. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling in the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling. The voice was chanting, and the fog was lifted. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island. From the redwood forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling in the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling. The voice was chanting, and the fog was lifted. This land was made for you and me. This land was made for you and me.